can I throw, now that we're talking about closers, can I throw a question out? So we've debated this, but I'd love to get Forrest's opinion on it. So
I think it came from his page. If you're putting the number on it, is it the Hall of Fame number? Okay, I want to ask him that question too.
It's along the same lines.
No, Harrison's going to ask him the Harrison question.
I'm going to ask you the Harrison question. I'm not a big closer guy. I feel like it's a specialist position that is highly overrated. What is your perspective on the closer role? Because these guys struggle to get into the Hall of Fame. And 03 Gagne was lights out. These guys struggle to get into the Hall of Fame. There's no real criteria for them to get in. And I've always been a firm believer that these specialist type roles like closers are less valuable than like a starting pitcher because they do one thing. It's very dependent on the team getting them there. And therefore they have a tougher path to the Hall. Do you believe history views the closer as a kind of a lesser role on a team?
I believe history does view it that way. And I do believe I said not too long ago that the table's already set and then they just have to clear it. So maybe I'm of that view too, without really thinking about it. I mean, I don't care too much about the Hall of Fame, but as far as just a value on a player, yeah, I think that closers are maybe a little bit underappreciated. I think they're much more specialized than a DH, and some people say, well, DHs don't belong in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I mean, not everybody can do it, though. Not everybody can just come in the ninth and knock it down, and especially with the bases loaded. You just come right in with the bases loaded. I mean, that's pressure. So you got to add a little bit of weight there for their value and what they're actually accomplishing.
Yeah. So Harrison and I have come back and forth a couple of times on this because in theory, I get where he's coming from, and I kind of agree. Like I a little bit agree. Because I equate it to like different sports, right? And I think like in football as an example, like you look at like a field goal kicker, right? Like a field goal kicker, the rest of the team has to do the work to get you into the opportunity to where you can make the field goal, right? You do one thing, right? It's the one thing that you do, and if the particular moment in the game isn't set up for you to do your thing, then you don't get to do your thing. So it's very personalized and individualized within the context of a team sport. However, outside of statistics, like baseball being a very, it's more than just the numbers you put forth. And to your point, Forrest, not everybody can do that, right? Like not everybody can, and you are in a position, in a situation in where you cannot mess up. You can't.
Yeah, there's no plan B.
There are some opportunities, right? Some opportunities in which you make a minor mistake and you give up a game-tying home run and your team has the opportunity maybe in the bottom of the ninth to kind of let you off the hook. But by and large, when you come in, if you fail, your team loses. That's where we go. Like if you fail, your team loses. So it's like there is no opportunity to be like, well, that was a tough inning. I'm going to make some adjustments and go back out the next inning and figure it out and get it. But like, no, there is no opportunity for that for the most part. So you have to be on. From the minute you walk out of that bullpen to the mound, you have to be on 100% of the time. It's on you. So I think there's a lot of pressure that comes to that. And yes, 03 Gagne over Rivera any year. Sure. I think you can make that argument. And I think it would be a difficult argument to go against. Yeah. But the breadth of Eric Gagne's career, I mean, 2002, 2003, 2004, he was an all-star. That's it. 3 years. Played 10 years, 3 all-stars.
Well, he was a converted starter who couldn't make it.
So I don't know. I not everybody can do it, and for the length of time for which Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman did it, I don't know. Is the position as a whole, in theory, is the position a bit overrated? Maybe you can make the argument, and maybe you could get me on your side. But we want to talk about two of the most dominant pitchers of their time. I still think they belong in that conversation, even though they weren't starters, because of how absolutely dominant they were for the period of time. It's close to 20 years for both of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So Harrison loves to bring it up, though. It's the big Harrison argument.
I'm not a big DH and closer guy. Like I feel like those are specialist positions, and if you give me a an elite first baseman that played good defense against the DH from taking the first baseman because he brought something on both sides of the ball. And you'll love this. We got in the debate last week about, on the balance, John Olerud has a higher career WAR and a higher career WAR in all of his peak seasons than David Ortiz. David Ortiz is in the Hall. John Olerud isn't, because Ortiz did one thing exceptionally well and Olerud did everything well, and you almost get punished for that when it comes Hall of Fame time.
It's watered down somehow.
All right. Yeah. So you're a small Hall guy as well, right?
Oh, but yeah, I think for the most part, if you get people that like care about the particular sport that they're talking about, I think everybody would probably end a conversation agreeing that small Hall is the way to go. Because again, you're just watering down the accomplishments of the truly great players, whatever sport you're talking about. And I think baseball has done a poor job of that. To set, and we talked about last week. I don't think we want to rehash the whole thing, but
no.
Giving particular statistical benchmarks, making it automatic Hall of Fame bids, I think is an issue, right? Because, and again, Craig Biggio, right? It's just kind of my example I use all the time. Craig Biggio had 3,000 hits. He's in the Hall of Fame. When you think Craig Biggio, was Craig Biggio, did he change the game? Was Craig Biggio someone that when you think about oh my God, teams had to game plan against Craig Biggio? He had 3,000 hits because he played for so long and he was consistent. And consistency is really good. But did you dominate the game? Were you, for 12, 15, 18 years, were you the best player in the league? Were you the team that were you the player that every other team feared? I don't know. And I think that should be the qualification and the requirement for Hall of Fame, not necessarily just statistical benchmark. I think that is what has caused baseball to water it down a little bit, because you have guys that just reach benchmarks because they played for an extended period of time. And I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah. I'm definitely a proponent of it, not just being about stats, but about just, someone who had not just one great moment. That would really be watering it down. But, it's people like to talk about the Hall of Fame, like the Hall of Fame. It's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good. But, I always tell those people, fame isn't another level of goodness. It's something totally different. So if you want to talk about a Hall of Fame player, you might not necessarily be talking about 3,000 hits. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree 100%.
Yeah,
I agree.
Totally.
I fully agree, which is why I think every Hall of Fame, the people that elect in vote, if you will, these people in the Hall of Fame should be the players, coaches, managers that you played against, coached against, played with, right? They know the true value of that particular player. They know how feared a particular player was. They know how difficult a particular player was to game plan against, or to play against, or to coach against. Those are the opinions that I put more weight on than writers. I don't know. And inherently, I have a problem with that being the way that somebody gets into the Hall of Fame, because I think it waters it down, and I think it lessens some of the true greats that are in there that belong in there. And it's well, yeah, but this guy's in.
Well, and we got into it with Joe Mauer. It's Joe Mauer's stats don't jump off the page at you as a true Hall of Famer, but you think about the impact he had in a 10-year window. It's hard to think of a more deserving player to go to the Hall. And I don't know where you fall, Forrest, if you think that Mauer is or isn't a Hall of Famer, but to your point, it's got to be more than Mauer. it's got to be more than stats, because this guy was the face of the game for a while, and the impact he had on the game and on that organization, it's bigger than just the numbers he put up.
Yeah.
Are you a Joe Mauer in the Hall of Fame guy?
Well, he was one of those guys like Ernie Banks. Banks wasn't always a shortstop, and Mauer wasn't always a catcher, but he was a consistently good hitter for quite a while. I don't have stats in front of me, but as far as just overall player, I can see that it's quite borderline, if not questionable, but I don't have a problem with him being in there. And even being from Minnesota myself, that maybe makes me a little biased, but I don't have a problem with him being in there.
That's was my view. Like, I don't have a problem with him being in there. I just don't know if he should. Like, if we want to do the whole small hall thing, then he's not quite in there for me. That was my argument with Mauer, but no doubt he dominated during that stretch.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
All right.
I can give you that. I can give you, and I'm gonna tie a bow on my part of it right here. I will give you that, Nick. If we're gonna do the small hall thing, I think it's a tough argument to make for Joe Mauer. Absolute, got to be in there. But the reality of where we are, it's not a small Hall of Fame, and I think with the players that are in there, I think Joe Mauer is right in that conversation to where you've let other guys in for what they've done over their career. I think Joe Mauer fits there. Is he a first ballot greatest player of all time? No, I'm not saying that. But I think with the guys that have been let in because of the accomplishments that they've had on the field, I think Joe Mauer fits that bill, and I think that's where the conversation says, I think we push it through.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Fair.
That's fair.
Yeah.